Make sure they got my number if they need
Okay.
If they need to get out of the store or something, I'll run over there and see them.
Okay.
So, you've got my cell phone.
Yep.
So what day are you leaving and what day are you coming back?
Monday morning.
That's when you're leaving?
My plane leaves at 6.
Ooh, you gotta be there at least by 5. You just show up in your pajamas and your flip-flops. That's what most idiots on the airlines fly with anymore. People wear their pajamas now everywhere.
What do you wear?
His
Three-piece
sister,
suit?
Me? No, I at least wear pants and shoes. You ever stepped in a puddle of diesel fuel with flip-flops on?
You guys were all
And then you
driving
kinda
around
back
the block.
I'm not coming back till like 11 p.m. Wednesday.
Oh, you're only going up for a couple of days?
Yeah,
If I noticed, I was like,
Yeah, maybe you'll get lucky and your flight will get delayed a couple of days.
maybe. So Aaron's coming here for a wedding, and then we're both gonna fly to Minneapolis and stay a couple days, and then he's going back home. And
So his,
Hey, Thatcher, you got my stuff.
Call the meeting to order. We'll have a prayer and a pledge led by Councilmember Larry Zimmerman.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, for invocation, please. Lord, we're just ever so thankful that as members of this community, we were honored enough to represent all the folks of our community, and we just pray that we do justice in the decisions we make, and we help benefit those that elected us as council members and mayor. We just ask that you would give us the wisdom to make good and prudent decisions, and that everything we do, Lord God, will bring honor and glory to your name. We ask these things in Jesus' name.
Thank you, Larry. Approval of the agenda. Take a motion to approve the agenda. Second by Larry, second by Brent. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. Citizen comments. Anybody from the crowd that would like to say a few words? No? All right. Next item. Appointments. Item E. Goddard Gratitude Appointment.
Honorable governing body, probably 7 or 8 months ago, Mr. Rick Hilmer reached out to us about nominating some of his neighbors for a gratitude. We kind of kicked the can down the road, so to speak, during the worst of the pandemic, so we're happy to resume Goddard Gratitude for the first time, I think, in over a year. So Travis and Amanda, or Mandy Bryant, were nominated for a gratitude award by Mr. Kilmer for just being great neighbors in their neighborhood. Whenever a yard needs mowed or a home project needs helped out with, Travis and Amanda are always anxious and eager to help their neighbors out. Whether it's fixing fence, touching up paint, they're always the first ones there to volunteer. The Bryants have even gone as far as to offer to watch other neighbors' pets if they're out of town or at appointments. So aside from that, they've just been great friends to Mr. Kilmer. And the Bryants exemplify the type of people that make great neighbors in this community, and we're happy to have them here. And so I'd like to introduce them, and Rick, if you want to say a few words.
I'd say if people found out the gold mine I got on my street, they'd be moving over to Shenandoah. Can't say enough about these two young people. I've had their boys in school, and great family. More than what's up there, they've done more than that. My wife has had an illness that's on dialysis. I don't know how many times I had to call Travis over to, hey, Travis, I need help getting Vicky up, and she might have, she really didn't fall. I just knew she was going down. I couldn't get her back up by myself, and Travis is over there. Mandy bringing food over. I looked like I was starving, huh? But anyhow, and there's a kind of a joke between Travis and I. helping our girlfriend out in the neighborhood. But that's as far as I'll go with that one. But they've been there. January, I lost my wife, and they just been there for me all the time. And you know, I went in to see. We just had her service Saturday. Go into the mortuary, come back out. My yard's mowed. I mean, that's just. I can't get ahead of them. Everything. I might have mowed their yard once or twice, but that's they're just fantastic people. And to help an old geezer like me, it's just it just warms my heart. And Vicki loved them, and just thankful that they are in the neighborhood. And, you know, the pretty one is Amanda, and then there's Travis. So, you guys come on up here. You can take some
down here.
Oh, yeah, we would. It's pretty easy. I have Rick as a neighbor, so I think most everybody knows Rick here, at least for the last 50, 60 years.
Thank you guys so
Yeah.
much. People like you make this community a great place.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. And thank you for telling us about them. So.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a picture together.
You need me to move the podium?
Well, how come I get the ugly one?
Not that close. Here, you guys hold it. There you are.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Okay. Next item F, consent agenda. County question on accounts payable.
We approve the consent agenda?
Motion by Larry. Second. Second by Brent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Item H1.
Honorable Mayor and Council, we have the ordinance authorizing the sale and issuance of the 2021 Star Bond for the project plan amendment number 1, totaling $11,065 in principal issuance costs. This is the history, really summed down to essentially the major actions, including our public hearings that started back in January of 2013. The most recent action occurred with the project plan amendment and our agreement amendment number 5 with the adoption of ordinance 865 on December 21st, 2020. And then we affirmed that amendment approval with ordinance 868 on January 27th, 2021. The ordinance authorizes the issuance in an amount not to exceed $11,065,000 to implement project plan amendment number 1. It'll be used to finance a portion of the cost, as there is private equity in that amount as well. The fund it also authorizes a debt service reserve fund to cover interest payments in the interim. It also allows us to pay the related issuance costs, which is standard. The ordinance approves and authorizes Mayor Larkin and staff to execute the documents to complete the issuance of the bonds to promote, stimulate, and develop the general and economic welfare of the city. And the ordinance is similar in form and authorization to the previously approved issuances for this project, initially in 2014 and with the refinance that occurred in 2020. The project plan amendment that this is looking to fund a portion of, phase 1 is under construction now with the Genesis Health Club. That includes group fitness studios, cardio and weight areas, locker room, child care services, and a kids facility that includes licensed daycare professionals. We'll have also summer sports camps, after school programs, and a play area. We did anticipate Phase 2 undertaken at the developer's discretion. It includes Phase 1 with the indoor aquatic center consisting of the 10 lanes, 25-meter competition aquatic pool with springboard and platform diving. The platform diving was subsequently removed when the pool size was downsized, but the springboard competition is available. There's a 600-plus poolside seating for contestants, as well as dressing and locker rooms. There is a privately funded indoor water park feature, including indoor slides and other aquatic activities. Phase 2 will be 5 additional baseball, softball fields made of synthetic turf, playing surfaces, stadium lighting, team dugouts, bullpens, and spectator seatings and concessions with restroom facilities. It also includes outdoor sand sports complex for 3 sand soccer fields around a common covered pavilion with mixed seating styles, including locker and changing rooms and concession and restrooms. The total project cost is approximately $12.5 million, with $10 million in equity and another $2.5 in private equity to get to that amount. It's important to note that the Secretary of Commerce has approved the project plan amendment and development agreement amendment for this. The bond ordinance and related documents were drafted by the city's bond counsel, Kevin Cowan of the firm Gilmore and Bell, and our city attorney has approved those documents as to form. In your staff report, there's about 100 and some odd pages, actually about 300 pages in the mandatory, and then we have about 100 and some in additional supporting documents for past references. So do you have any questions for myself or our bond attorney, Kevin Cowan, who's present? And if I can answer on the city's part, we have our city attorney, Ryan Peck, available to do so as well.
So what this agreement's saying, that he can pretty much do any part of it anytime and leave the rest of it sit, right?
No, this is actually for the sale to authorize the mobilization for Phase 2. So this is essentially formalizing the sale that was previously approved.
Yeah, this doesn't have any bearing on Phase 1.
But I mean,
It doesn't change or
looked to me
alter
like
their
you could start
obligation.
Phase 2 without finishing Phase 1 or whatever, right?
Say that again, Larry.
You could start Phase 2 without completing Phase 1.
Well, I think the expectation is that, Phase 1 is ongoing, and they may start work on Phase 2, but the expectation is that Phase 1 is going to continue, and they're going to continue to be diligent in completing it. And if they're not, then that's going to be a breach of the development agreement.
And for the state's skin in this game, for there to be any additional allocations for Phase 2 beyond the initial distribution, they'll have to show that they've put in their private equity, and then those draws are also approved by the Secretary of Commerce as well. So it's not just done at the local level.
Okay.
And Kevin, could you speak maybe more eloquently to that?
I don't know about that. I'll add a couple of things. One of the things I wanted to mention, and it's been a number of months ago, is probably kind of to your point, Larry. One of the things you confirmed, or we all confirmed before the Fifth Amendment and Phase 2 moved forward, is that the financing was in place for Phase 1. And I think we even got proof of a mortgage and for the hotel, which was the final piece. So that was sort of the best we could do. Know that everything's in place for them to finish. It was under construction. And then, as Brian mentioned, on Phase 2, it's in both the development agreement, it was in the Secretary of Commerce's approval letter, it's in the bond documents that on this portion, $5 million of STAR bonds can be spent, and then they have to stop, and they have to spend their equity, and then the last $5 million to finish Phase 2 comes from STAR bonds. So it's sort of built in that kind of midstream, the developer has to contribute the equity, or they don't get access to the remaining funds to complete Phase 2. So that was how we've addressed some of those concerns and the process of getting Phase 1 done, and how quickly is Phase 2 going to get done. And again, that was, given the speed at which things were moving, I think we all thought that was the best we could do. If we had proof that Phase 1 financing was in place, They had poured the footings on the hotel. Everything was under construction and financing was in place, and we moved forward with phase 2. And then, as I mentioned, phase 2, both at the state level and the local level, we've imposed this requirement of you don't get all of the STAR bond proceeds until you've spent your equity contribution in the middle of construction.
Is it correct that now with these new bonds, the state Secretary Tolan has to approve the issuances, the disbursements? I mean, or do we do that?
Local still does it. The real difference is at $5 million, bond proceeds stop, and then all of the equity has to be proven up. And then once that has been established, then the last $5 million will flow. And then to the extent, I don't have the number in front of me, I think it was that $12 million figure. If the cost is greater than the $12 million figure, everything above that every cost item has to be approved by the secretary. So it's kind of a hybrid what we're doing now, which is not a hybrid in addition to what we're doing now, which is local has approved all of the STAR bond expenditures. Now it's $5 million will get approved locally, then the equity has to be approved by the Secretary of Commerce. Then after that's been spent, the last $5 million will get spent. If there's anything in addition to that, the project is expanded, anything of that nature, then the Secretary has to specifically approve that.
How do they audit the private equity? How do they validate that?
That is going to have to go to the state.
Okay. So
Individual.
that all is managed through the state?
Right.
Okay.
And as I mentioned, we have a bond trustee, Security Bank, that controls all of the bond funds. And in the indenture, they can't pay any draw requests beyond the initial $5 million unless the Secretary and the State Department of Commerce have signed off on the equity contribution.
Okay. All right.
All right, well, I just didn't want that sitting there at Christmas with only one story to it.
Right. Well, yeah, that's
Yeah.
We've done all we can do at the local level.
right. And there are more restrictions, as we've talked, with the Secretary's involvement. It's not, if there were concerns about, well, will phase 2 move more quickly? Will phase 2 fund part of phase 1? I don't think the latter is going to happen. I mean, phase 2 dollars have to be spent on phase 2. Can't promise you that phase 2 won't move really quickly, although they're in the middle of fall season, and so I don't know that they'll get under construction until the fall. But yeah, I mean,
I think the city's portion of holding the feet to the fire has reached its limit on what we can do. I think most of the responsibility is in the Department of Commerce's hands, and we are beholden to them.
right. I mean, all of the phase 1 STAR bond proceeds have been spent. So now it's into equity and the financing that we talked about earlier that we did get evidence was in place a number of months ago. The speed at which it's moving, I think that's probably right. The city's probably at its limit unless you get to a point where the developer's just in default under the development agreement, which we're a number of months away from that. But so that's how all that will work. The other thing I wanted to mention, just high points on numbers, and I think you've seen some of the numbers from when the bonds were priced, but based on scenario 1 of sales tax receipts, which is a projection just based on what's there, not even what may get constructed, just what is there now generating sales tax. It is projected that the 2019 bonds will pay off in 2028, and these bonds, the 2021 bonds, can't have any principal paid until the 2019 bonds are paid off, and that was built into the original bond document. So 2019 will pay off in 2028, and then it will only take a couple of years. It's projected that in December of 2030, these bonds would pay off. And the import of that is that would mean if nothing else happens, we don't have a phase 3 or anything else, the Star Bond project plan, which had a 20-year life extending to 2034, would actually end 4 years early. So I know it's been a long process, but the cash flows are very good, and the bonds have always been in wonderful shape in terms of cash flow and plenty of funds to retire them, and again, projected that it will occur early. The interest rate on these bonds is 3.5%, which is a little better than what you had on the 2019 bonds. So all the numbers are very good. Those things have worked out as well as they could. And again, the main difference between phase 2 and phase 1 and what can the city do, and does it have any leverage to make sure things are happening at certain times, it's what we've described. Like, you can have access to some bond proceeds, but then your equity comes in the middle of the game, not at the end of the game the way it has on phase 1.
Well, it's been a long deal. I'm sure you're aware of how long this has been going
Yeah,
on.
I've been in here every step of the way, just like you have. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he drafted every single one of these. Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome.
Well, if there are no questions, we have a action item to waive the reading of the ordinance, which can be done by voice vote.
Do I have a motion to waive the reading?
So motion?
Motion by Michael,
Second.
second by Brent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
A motion to consider the ordinance.
Motion, we consider the ordinance as proposed.
Motion by Michael,
Second.
second by Larry. Roll call.
Councilmember Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mayor Larkin,
Yes.
Councilmember Trailer,
Yes.
Councilmember Proctor.
Yes.
That'll be ordinance 869.
Honorable governing body, this is just kind of some cleanup about the community center upgrades and cosmetic improvements. So, as we know, a few meetings back, the governing body approved an Eagle Scout project to be conducted by Christian Zimmerman. City staff agreed to kind of assess any needed improvements before the work started. And I believe they're going to try to start working here in the next couple of weeks, so we're just trying to get this building cleaned up a little bit before they start and ready for paint. So upon review, there's some pressing issues that were identified. The building definitely needs either new framing around the windows or a lot of work. I mean, I think from Brooke and I looking at it, the windows themselves are all right, but just the framing on the outside. So I'll have a picture of that a little later on. Also, Councilmember Trailer previously brought up the idea of adding some guttering to the building just to help extend the paint life and improve drainage. Is that about right, Brent?
Yeah.
Okay. And then proposed trim colors are light gray scheme with dark gray trim. And you know, we're kind of seeing this building as, you know, after this project as a transitional building that's, you know, would want to last us, you know, 3 to 5 more years. So we want to make sure it's beautiful, and if we decide to keep it beyond that, you know, it'll be a good backup space for us, we think. After Brooks' inspection last year, we kind of learned that it was relatively pretty safe building. I think the contractor said nobody was going to fall through the floor, like it had been previously stated. And I believe it's a pretty sturdy building. It just needs a little TLC. So as you can see, the sign outside is pretty dated. I believe at one point it lit up. We're not sure if it still does or not, but hoping to replace that with a cleaned up metal sign. Potentially maybe taking the address out of there and including our Goddard logo. So we'll send a couple drafts out that to the governing body for input, and then we're gonna go ahead and plan on replacing this display case over here too that's a little hard to see through. A couple major things, you know, that front piece of wood out there just kind of needs a little bit of metal work. Brooke and I are in the process of reaching out to the people that fixed the sheet metal on the back of the building and gonna try to get them to come out here and do a little more work. So we'd like to clean those things up a little bit, and then as you can see here, there's some of that trim that's fallen off one of the windows. And if we could clean up all this trim around the edge, it's pretty dented up from maybe some hail damage and whatever else. So upon inspecting the bell and the railing, they're pretty desperate for a coat of paint and some rust treatment. So Public Works said they have a chemical that's able to treat that rust pretty well. And we're hoping that if the Eagle Scouts are willing, they'll go ahead and throw a fresh coat of black paint on each of those, make them look a little bit better. Lights are in pretty bad shape, but luckily we think that's a pretty affordable, cheap solution to get a couple new lights out front and see if this one over here on the, I believe the north side of the building even works at all, or we might just patch that hole up and skip that light because that's currently a door to nowhere. So these are pretty rough numbers that we're looking at. We do think we could stay within staff's budget authority, so we're considering around $1,000 for a new metal sign. That's pretty in line with some previous signage I've bought for, I believe the last metal sign we made was for the brush pile. Display case for around $500 for my preliminary research. Thinking around $1,000 to clean up the metal sheeting, some patchwork, removing some of those hooks on the outside of the building that we don't know what the purpose is for, and then around $1,000 for new window trim, caulking around the windows. And we're hoping $500 would cover those 3 or 4 light fixtures that need replaced. And then breaking it out in a separate project, maybe after we've completed the paint job, coming back and adding guttering in, you know, and any patching we need on the building to accommodate that guttering. Yeah, go ahead.
Councilman Trailer, you mentioned possibly letting us use some scaffolding.
Yeah.
Is that still available?
Yeah.
Okay, appreciate that. We'll contact you on that.
Okay.
With you on that.
So I don't know if we're necessarily needing to take action. This was just us wanting to confirm that we do want to move forward and clean up these major issues while we're throwing a coat of paint on it. I think it would be staff's recommendation to fix these things for, you know, pretty affordable amount, and try to keep it under $5,000 for these additional improvements. And
Paint supplies, we're estimating about $1,500
yeah,
on top of these costs that you mentioned.
Okay.
yeah. So these are costs kind of outside of the original cost that we had of what's it going to take to get it painted. So
It is our community center, and looks like it's in pretty significant disrepair. So I am definitely for the extra money to get the cheap stuff fixed up for sure.
Okay.
Some thoughts?
Oh my grandson definitely appreciates some adult help.
Hey, I'll be glad to come helping.
Yeah. All right, is there,
In the scouting rules, anything above that they can reach, they can't do the smaller kids. And so adults have to do basically 6 foot and above.
oh, really?
There we go.
Brent?
Oh, I'll definitely come help.
Hey, I'm a shorty guy.
you guys can hop on each other's shoulders or something. So.
So is there no action needed?
I don't really think we necessarily need to take action, just if there's a consensus amongst the council.
Yeah.
And obviously, if anything comes in crazy high above our authority, then we'll come back to the council and present it. So,
Perfect.
thank you.
Thank you, Thad.
Too much.
Honorable Mayor and Council, this is just a quick update on what's happening at well number 7. As we know, the well developed a screen at 72 feet early in the year. Currently, the original well infrastructure has been removed. They've installed the 82-foot liner covering that hole, and that's at top 82 feet of the well, so the bottom approximately 75 additional feet are still the old liner. After that, they conducted test pumping to verify that the well would pump the capacity at the volume that we needed. They were easily getting 400 gallon per minute out. They were easily getting over 5. When they hit 6, their drawdown came a little bit, but we could pump, they estimate 5 to 550, pretty standard on that. They've also installed the new well top plate and water delivering piping. It's all installed and connected to the existing discharge to the pipe to the water main. Next steps will include installing a new motor and 500 gallon per hour submersible pump, a new column, and the control wiring. Once they have that in the ground, the well will be functional with the exception of we'll have to get Atlas Electric out to hook up the electric. Then we will pour a concrete pad and put a new well house on it. If the budget allows, something we'd like to include, and if our current budget allows, something we'd like to include in it is a variable frequency drive, which allows that well to a soft startup versus coming on hard. It ramps up to where it needs to be, a little easier on your equipment. And it also would give us control to vary the output of the pump. If we needed to draw it down a little bit, we could, or bring it up, we can. So if budget allows, that's a $9,700 item versus just wiring for about half that price. So we'll see how that goes. We're still waiting on the pump. Park Well is ordering the pump, and once they get that in, they will come down and they will put the motor in the pump and the column in and wire it up, get everything running, and we'll have water flowing out of that. They're expecting to be operational by the end of June, and that's depending on if we had a problem getting the pump. They don't anticipate that, but there's a little lead time to that as well. A couple pictures here. The one on the left is when they were putting the new liner in. That is a portion of the liner. They do it kind of like they do an oil well. They weld joints pipe together and lower them down, put a slip in, weld them again, and keep going. Once they get that in, on this picture they're showing where they drop a test pump down in there, and they run it at different volumes and measure its pumping capacity and the amount of drawdown on the well, how much it pulls down the water volume. Financials already approved by council. We had January 19, 21, $40,000 was the initial approval. Second was May 17th of 21 for $60,000 for a total of $100,000. And they're allocated to water reserve collection and treatment. This, like I said, this is just a little update. There's no action, but if anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to.
Instead of building a little well house around it?
Yes, sir. Well, the old one, as we took it down, it pretty much was old and came apart. It had been there a lot of years, so we do have money in the budget for a new well house.
Any way we can put like a big lightning rod up there to keep lightning off the casings?
We do have a lightning rod on the tower or the pole that has the communications antenna on it. I'll double check that and make sure it's still properly functioning. And if not, we'll repair it and make sure that we don't have an issue with lightning.
Brooke, the liner was cut with steel?
With the liner?
The liner that was put in was a steel pipe?
Yes, it was a steel pipe.
Yeah.
10 3/4 inches in diameter. So just a tiny bit smaller than what was there, and this is considered a repair. So we didn't have to deal with a bunch of permitting with KDHE. If we would have re-drilled a well, we'd still be waiting. So.
I just didn't know if lightning would fall the casing down and melt the screen or not, I don't know.
When they pulled the column, what they found was the column had been in there since 1978, so it had some wear on it, and it had developed a hole in it. And Brad Vincent's best guess is that hole acted just as a water jet and just basically blew a hole in that screen. I did see the videos that went down as Harlan did, and Brad and I sat and watched them together, and he was impressed at how clean the inside of that casing looked for as long as that well had been there. And looking at that, he's a trained eye, so he can look at the casing and based on what's growing on that casing or not growing, tell us what quality of water we had. And he was impressed at the high quality of the water in the well.
You might have, Atlas Electric's gonna wire it, you said?
Correct.
You might just inquire with them about lightning arresting.
I will do that.
Lightning protection or whatever, equipment.
I'll do that,
If
I'll
there's-
do that, definitely.
Any more questions? No? Thank you,
All
bro.
right, thank you.
Item H4.
We're going to continue budget discussions tonight. We're into the second to last chunk of our funds that we're going to look at. Tonight we've got the special revenue funds and our non-operating funds. Now, the non-operating funds are all not budgeted technically, as in we do not need to adopt an expenditure authority for those because they're non-budgeted. We can spend those as we need, but we're going to go through them anyway. Because I do have some estimates in place instead of actual budget numbers. Start with the street fund. I apologize for that animation, didn't mean to do that. Again, the street fund maintains city roadways. This is, we budget electricity for signalization, street lights, and their replacement. It also includes a stormwater system, and we treat for mosquitoes out of highway department funds. There's just an overall picture of revenues and expenditures for the fund. As you can see, we've still got, at the end of the year, we still had over $1 million in fund balance, which is more than our entire budget for this fund. So again, I'm holding back, for the second year in a row, I'm going to hold back some transfers from the general fund into here to draw down that fund balance further. As you see, by the end of the proposed budget year, we'll have it drawn down to about $6,500, which is a little bit closer to the actual operating position of the fund, which is a good, healthy place to have it. We'll talk, this is the only place I've got revenue shown, so I'll just go over that really quickly. The fund is financed through fuel taxes from the state of Kansas and our share of the Sedgwick County fuel tax. So it's $123,000 from the state, $53,580 from the county, and then we transfer in $495,000 from the general fund, which is the 3/4 of the prior year's Sedgwick County sales tax revenue is where we shoot for. So that's what our estimates for 22 and 23 are based on. Administration, the cost center 410, it's where our personnel costs are, as well as all the basically work for the street department that's done actually in City Hall. So this includes a portion of our administrative staff, a third of the cost for our public works staff, and then associated operational costs for the admin. We also have the capital outlay here, $200,000 to our street maintenance program. And then 430 is street operations. This is actual, on the ground supplies, contractual services, et cetera, that we do for operating our street program. Stormwater here, we always budget about $5,000 a year for contractuals and commodities, just for rehab and maintenance of the stormwater system. The street lighting, the majority of this cost is contractual, and that's electric for the street lights and the signals. And we put a little bit, about $3,000 in a year. That includes just replacement and general maintenance costs for actual commodities for the street lights. Mosquito control, the commodity cost here, that's for chemicals that we treat with. We budget that amount every year, but they tend to take a couple of years to run down their supply, but we always just make sure we have that there. And then we have, that also includes a little bit of costs for the equipment they use for treating the mosquitoes. Transfers here, last year, like I said, we didn't use all of our street maintenance budget authority, so we transferred that to capital improvement to fund capital fund for larger street projects, either this year, next year, or down the road, just to build up some fund balance for that. The only change this year, there's no other budgeted changes for transfers. We're going to transfer 50,000 like we're doing this year to the equipment reserve fund, because that equipment reserve fund, we're funding transfers from the 4 major operating funds now, so they're all going to be $50,000 for a total of $200,000 a year going into equipment reserve. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Next, we have Special Parks and Recreation Fund. This is not our operating costs for the parks. This is just money that we transfer in from general fund to fund one-time larger projects in the park system. So it's not mowing or anything like that. This is just this is money we set aside for larger projects. Like I just said there. So we've got a pretty good fund balance starting this year, $250,000. I go ahead and budgeted $100,000 last year in park upgrades. So just so we have the authority there to spend money if we decide to do some parks projects. We talked about a couple of things in the capital budget program, and so that this could pay for some of that. And I'm going to do that again next year. I'm going to increase that to 125, just so we have budget authority to do parks projects. But again, we've still got sufficient fund balance. We're still planning to transfer in $50,000 a year. Ideally, what we would do is build that up over a period of time, like we have, to where we started out the year with just under $250,000, and then we talk about spending about half of that transfer every year, and then bankrolling half of it to go to build up the fund balance. So we have a lot of expenditures in there budgeted this year and next year. I don't think we're going to probably get anywhere near that $100,000 park upgrade, but I went ahead and kept it going just so we can be conservative with our fund balance estimates going forward. We have the Tourism Promotion Fund. This fund pretty much serves to collect transient guest tax, which is hotel bed taxes, and then we usually hold on to that to use in the future for marketing or other means of promoting the city. I think we used these funds a couple years ago to purchase our drone that we use for promotional stuff, and also and other marketing in the future. This fund, I budget revenue of about $15,000 for guest tax, and then I was budgeting $25,000 of marketing, advertising, etc. We don't usually spend it, but we're still building fund balance in there. So we're expecting to end the year with over $100,000. So that's a pretty healthy fund balance. So the thought's always been that once we get our Starbond project up and running, we could put some real money into advertising the city to draw people in to take advantage of those new amenities. So this is a new fund that we created this year because Tanganyika now has their CID sales tax, and legally we have to have a separate special revenue fund to collect that tax and to pay it out to them to reimburse their costs for the improvements they use that sales tax for. So that's all this fund is. It's Fund 62. The 60s are our special revenue funds, and so I budgeted in revenue of $160,000 this year and next year, with giving us the full authority to spend that next year of the full amount of their revenue. So I doubt they're going to do $320,000 worth of approved improvements next year, but we have the budget authority to do it just in case. And we'll go ahead and probably budget $160,000 a year going forward, just so we have the ability to pay them their money when they do have improvements to be reimbursed for. We're getting to the reserve funds again. All the funds we're going to do now going forward, none of these actually we're not legally obligated to budget these funds, but we prepare estimates anyway just so we can share them with you. Like I said, beginning next year, in prior years when the water and sewer fund did not have sufficient revenue to continue making regular transfers into the equipment reserve fund, we stopped those and we just transferred to about $200,000 a year in from the general fund. Now that all the other operating funds are in a healthier position, we're able to resume funding our equipment reserve from all 4 major funds. So that's what we're proposing, is $50,000 a year from each of the major funds. This way we get a mixture of revenue that goes into it, so we're not funding it from a single source. We've got water and sewer revenue, and we've also got general fund, which most of that would probably be city or a share of the city and county sales tax that funds that. Expenditures, we've put long-term $60,000 a year for public works vehicles. That should be vehicles and heavy equipment. So we're either going to, I'm just giving us, like I said, we don't need budget authority for this fund, but for planning purposes, the idea is to build this fund balance up. So we budget in, I put down in the capital budget $60,000 a year, whether we spend it or not. I just want to make sure that we're cognizant of the fact that we do have, we've done a good job in the last few years of replacing that fleet as it ages, but we've still got some aging equipment there. So we'd like to remind ourselves to keep putting money away to pay for some of those replacements as we need them going forward. The Water Reserve Fund, this we fund with the transfer from the water utility, and I'm going to increase that to $50,000 next year. Go back there. So, because we have had some expenses out of there, including the infrastructure, the well stuff that Brooke talked about earlier. That's what this big number here, $220,000 for this year, is included in that. As you can see, we have dropped that fund balance since beginning of 2020, as we have had a lot of replacement expenses out of here. So it's one of the reasons I'm increasing that transfer to $50,000, and so hopefully we'll be able to recover some of the fund balance we've lost over the next couple of years, barring any other major breakdowns in the system. But it's important to get this built back up, so when we do have problems like with the wells, we've got cash to pay for that, so we're not having to bond out replacement of infrastructure that we've already got. Sewer replacement reserve. Again, we've done a good job here of building this fund balance back up over the last couple of years. It got very low. As you can see, we started 2020 with only $113,000. So we have done a good job building that up. We've put some, I always budget, quote unquote, some utility infrastructure money in here just to, remind us that we do have expenses for big parts of the sewer system that we try to tackle regularly. Some of the, we budget in the sewer fund a lot of the repair and maintenance and replacement costs for the stuff at the plant, but there's other parts of the system that we try to, use this for if we can. But again, as you see, I'm increasing that transfer. I increased it this year to $180,000 from $100,000, and I'm proposing to increase it up to $200,000 for 2022, and ideally we bump it up to $250,000 a year in 23, but I'm gonna have to wait and see how comfortable I am with that after we look at what the new water and sewer rate structure delivers for us for the rest of this year as far as revenue. The Capital Improvement Fund, this is where we pay for our big capital projects. We use it to fund our subdivision programs, because that's where we receive the temporary notes that we use to pay for those improvements, and then we, after those improvements are done, we refund that back to the bonded interest fund with the permanent financing. We also pay for some other bigger projects here because we try to maintain a significant fund balance here for larger projects which we don't have in our other capital line items in our other operating funds. So we had a big fund balance here beginning of 2020. That's mostly temp notes for subdivision projects that have already been taken care of. As far as our revenue goes, there we go. The biggest funder of the capital improvement fund for regular cash injections comes from a transfer from the general fund, and that's essentially our city sales tax is what we transfer in there. We also have, I'm also increasing, we talked about when we did sewer budget, I'm increasing the transfer from the sewer utility fund into here. We had it at $50,000 last year. We're going to have some exit. We still have plenty of excess fund balance in the sewer fund, so I'm going to transfer an additional amount of that into here. It's basically making up for the difference with our debt payments, because we restructured our debt. So what excess we had left over that we normally would have used to pay debt, we're going to transfer into the capital improvement fund, and then I'd like to increase that that transfer from sewer next year and into 2023. And we went over that when I presented the sewer utility budget a few months ago. And then, like I said, we don't have to budget these funds, but I try to include whatever we've already talked about in the either things that we've approved during the year or things that we've talked about doing in the capital budget process. And try to include them here just so we have an idea of what our fund balance will look like going forward. So some of this stuff, like in this 2021 estimate here, this includes some subdivision stuff that we know we're going to either have already paid for, or we know we'll be paying, or will be completed this year. We put aside this $325,000 a year over the next couple of years to pay for that lift station we built. We've got our portion of the R-cut, the expenditures that we'll have this year included there. What we paid for the frontage realignments included there. And then these big multi-million and $1 million expenditure here. This is retiring the temporary notes for these projects. So it's not, we're not actually cutting a check out of reserves or anything. Those money that we've received in temp note that we pay out for the permanent financing. And then the Star Bond Fund, this is the fund that we've used since we initially borrowed the money for our portion of contribution to the Star Bond. This is just where we have that and we collect interest on it and pay it out as we go along. So hopefully we'll be paying out that most of that balance for our contribution to the Star Bond project either this year or next year. I'm going to have included it in this year's estimate just to, in case we're able to do that. And then I have a little left over, which is basically what we collected interest over that next year to pay out at that time. And again, this is not a budgeted fund. I just wanted to show you the estimates I put in place. And so I know we haven't gotten to I haven't presented general fund, bond and interest fund, or library fund yet, but I want to just go ahead and show you this overall budget as a whole projection I have for including what those general bond and interest and library fund budgets will be, just so we can kind of get an idea. And again, this is just the operating budget, so this does not include transfers to other funds. It does not include our cash basis reserve for our debt fund, which is what we use to predict borrowing and repayment needs we'll have, nor does it include our capital outlay discretionary line item in the general fund. That again is the catch-all line item we use for budgeting, but this is overall what all of our revenues and expenditures are by type that we anticipate for the 2022 operating budget. That's all I've got for tonight, unless you have any questions. Our budget calendar is going to be a little different this year because of the new state budget law. So normally we would be presenting and scheduling a public hearing for July, but the way the new law works is we can't hold that public hearing until after August 20th. So we'll either have a special meeting the 3rd or 4th or 5th. I can't remember which way. It's either the 23rd or 30th of August, special meeting to conduct those public hearings, or we will have a public hearing on the September 7th meeting, which is the day after Memorial or Labor Day. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matt.
Honorable Mayor and Council. Just some images here of the Star Bond site showing the progress with the hotel, the health club, and the child care facility on the left-hand side. This raised portion, again, is the roof line of the privately funded water park, with this lower, narrower side being the publicly funded competitive swimming area. Just another comparison looking in the same direction from April 12th to June 7th. This is just some images here of Arbor Creek. Additional images of Arbor Creek looking back to the west. 38 out of the 59 lots are sold. some images here at Clover Leaf. You can see the multifamily housing on Martin's Courts nearly completed, and you can see some of the privately owned homes here with their nice lawns and fencing, while construction continues around them on phase 1, with phase 2 beginning back on that side. With Micah's handy dandy phase map. Elk Ridge showing new construction started on the northwest corner there, showing that there's only 10 lots available. Rusty Creek shows progress of construction as we're proceeding. With the recent rains, with where they're at in their stage, that's slowed them down somewhat. But we expect with this dry weather that the next images will be show significant progress. This shows the Brahms with access onto the frontage road, the private frontage, and then out onto the public frontage as well, with the monument sign with the digital marquee there. I'd like to remind everyone, if they are available, Saturday, June 19th from 4 to 8, to attend the latest Goddard Gathering coming out of COVID. We'll have 3 different groups there, as well as at least 3 confirmed food trucks. Just to kind of keep the dates for June 10th, June 24th, July 8th, July 22nd, with the August 2nd council presentation for the community center focus groups. The next one will be focused on location, phasing, and preliminary cost estimates. CDBG grant information or distribution update. As you are aware, early in COVID, with the federal fundings rolled out, we applied for and received $132,000 worth of community development block grants for the COVID small business assistance, also known as the CDBG-CV. Programs administered by our Community Development Director, Micah Scoggin, who reports that 100% of the eligible funds have been dispersed. The distributions range from as little as $4,602, which is not all that little to that business, to $42,729. In order to close out the program, we're going to conduct 2 public hearings. The first will be in July, which Michael will be providing an overview, and the second meeting will be the formal closure of the program that'll occur the following meeting in August. Miscellaneous updates. Our pavement preservation program is beginning this week, and the first will be a full depth improvement where they're taking out the base, the subsurface, and the surface recondition, and that'll occur at 5th and Cindy, Thursday and Friday of this week. Server upgrade that was approved May 3rd, but the council's now complete. However, we've had some security handshake issues that have delayed the online payment portion, and we've had to redo some data entry as the server was pointed to the wrong server when the data was entered. So we got to re-enter some of the, I should say, Sarah, our customer care clerk, she's the one doing all the work, but she's re-entering those. So we've delayed disconnections 1 week to next Monday to allow folks the added time to get on there, since it was a mistake on our end. And then the Southwest Corridor basin study, we received that report, and that was approved for $13,500. That went to the sewer reserve for that cost. And we'd like to remind everyone to attend Chief's retirement reception for July 1st from 3 to 5 here at City Hall to show 31 years of service. I would say, dang, that's a long time, but ICMA sent me a 28-year thing today.
You're right on my heels.
So I'm not far behind.
Yeah.
But yeah, we hope you're able to attend. With that, some upcoming notable items, including Chief's reception. Governing body comments.
Larry?
I just noticed that we ended up paying the bands or something in advance or something for the gathering, because we ended up having to pay them. Noticed in the accounts payable, we paid X amount of dollars for the gathering bands. Did we pay them in advance?
Yeah, for the, to secure them for bookings. That's what we've historically done.
Just didn't know if we had to pay them in full for their services in advance.
Yeah, and I'll defer to Thatcher, but no,
I
that's.
think we go ahead and cut them the check, and then if, for whatever reason, if it's postponed or anything, I think they keep a certain amount out of that,
There's,
depending on how close it is to the event.
I can't remember if it's a 15 or a 20% retainage in the event of event cancellation. It's what since we began doing live events, that's what we've done, whether it was for the jazz groups for Christmas or.
We do
had-
retain.
Yes.
No, I just noticed there's a lot of people using the park, which is a nice thing to see. A lot of traffic.
Yeah, last week in the evenings, like every night, it was just, there's hardly anywhere to park over there, so.
And it's Monday night, and the baseball fields are full tonight.
But that's all I have.
Thank you, Larry. Michael?
Yeah, I know along with how busy the park's been, I've enjoyed having the family over there and having some seating. So really appreciate all you guys' work on that. And it's looking good over there. So much appreciated.
It is looking good, but that house across the street's not looking so good.
We are.
Isn't that right?
It is not.
We can't go play golf on that sucker, can't we? Matt.
Well, based on how I played Friday, with the first time in a couple of years, on the second hole, I took out some guy's window. So,
Oh, wow.
I got a call from an HOA this morning.
Quit using the personalized golf
So you went to
balls.
Rolling Hills or?
No, I was at that little 9-hole course in Andover.
Oh, you remember the horse there.
My nephew's 7th birthday, and he wanted to play golf. He had his first golf lesson earlier that day, so we wanted to go play golf. So my brother and I took him over there, and I showed him what not to do.
I broke a really nice window at Wildflower outside of Austin, Texas. It was a country club. It was definitely nice.
Well, this was just a rental, so hopefully I'll be okay.
How do you not have fairway glass on a
Yeah,
house
yeah.
when you live on the golf?
That's it.
I don't have anything.
Public admission of.
We've got a 5-minute executive session. And so I look for a motion. And move for
To
executive-
recess into executive session for consultation with an attorney on matters that would be deemed privileged in attorney-client relationship to include the city attorney and city administrator, reconvene in the open meeting of the city council chambers in 5 minutes at 8:06.
Motion.
Motion by Larry, second by Brent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. During executive session, for straggling in, I look for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Michael, or second by Michael, motion by Brent.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed.